have with us here all throughout the night. All-time great Olympian, Olympic champion, national champion, Howard Davis Jr. See, I had the junior's going to, it just rolls right off. You say the junior. You go by junior, though, or you could be
I'm
Howard
a junior,
Davis.
but most people call me Howard Davis.
Now it's Howard Davis, and it's great to have you here. I know you don't make a lot of national appearances. You know, it's great to have you on here on Friday Night Fights, and we're going to break out the old footage for the younger people out there. We send out the resume for Howard Davis, and the amateur record. Look, back in the day, this is remarkable. 125-5, of course, Olympic champion, national AAU champion, and beating, correct me if I'm wrong, Hilmer Kenty and Thomas Hearns back-to-back in an amateur competition?
Actually, I fought Hilmer Kenty in the semifinals.
Yeah.
And then the next day I fought Tommy Hearns, and about 2 or 3 weeks later I fought Aaron Pryor in the Olympic trials.
Yes, and you beat Aaron Pryor twice.
Yeah, I had to beat him twice.
Make the U.S. team.
Yeah, I had to beat him twice to get on the team.
I mean, unbelievable. The amount of time. I mean, when you look at, those guys are Hall of Famers. You're facing one Hall of Famer basically after another in amateur competition. How difficult was that competition compared to the international competition?
Well, I'll tell you, it was very difficult just trying to make the team. The Olympics was pretty easy to me in comparison. Hilmer Kenty probably was the toughest guy I fought. Really? Yeah, he never stopped throwing punches. And I had fought somebody early in the morning, around 11:30, and then I didn't know I had to fight again. So my father came to my room and said, "Son, you got to fight again." And it was like I had to get my mental brain together to fight him within a half an hour.
To fight who? Kenty?
Hilmer
Kenty.
Kenty, yeah. And he hadn't fought anybody, so he was fresh when he fought me.
Yeah, and Hearns must have been a sight back at, what was he, 100, was that 132?
132.
132 pounds for Thomas Hearns. That's a fright. And I'll get more serious. Just before the Olympics begin, this is just before the opening ceremonies, then you lost your mother.
Yeah, my mother died 3 days before I had my first fight.
So, again, it was well chronicled at the time, but just had to be, I mean, it's mind-boggling how you could refocus. What was it like in those days?
Well, when I found out, my initial reaction was to go home. And Tom Sarge Johnson, second Olympic coach, took his right hand and put it on my shoulder, on my left shoulder, and said, "What would your mother want?" And he walked away. And I remember my mother's last words with a smile on her face was, "Good luck, and you better bring her." She took her finger like this, "And you better bring home the gold," with a smile on her face. So that resonated with me, and I stayed. I stayed.
Oh, it's tremendous. And of course, you start things off. Let's go back now, 1976. In your first bout, you did get dropped early, but then you got back to dominate. Let's pick it up in your second fight now. In Montreal, Leonidas Asprilla of Colombia. At this point, how is your rhythm? How is your focus? Well, before we get to that, let's listen. I'm going to be dropping in from here and there and listening into Howard Cosell with the call.
Oh! A quick right by the Colombian. Really got to Davis. He better start putting his hands up. What a shot.
All right, Howard, so how are you at this point?
Well, he was a murderous puncher, I'll tell you that. Even as a professional, he was a murderous puncher. I just said to myself, I got to do this. I had to get up and perform and stay focused. And I started using my jab a little bit more, a little more feints. And as you'll see right here, I'll start feinting more and throwing my jabs.
How long did it take you to get your rhythm, though, and put again, out of your mind, at least briefly, the tragedy of losing your mother?
Well, I can't say it was out of my mind. It was always in my mind. Even when I was fighting, I can hear my mother talking to me. And I just kept focused, man. I just kept my mother's memory alive with winning. And that's all I kept thinking about. I was willing to die before I lose. That's where I felt at the time.
That's the way you were fighting. So again, it's a knockout in the second fight, the second round. Leonidas Asprilla of Colombia. Let's move on now to the quarterfinal. This is Svetan Svetkov of Bulgaria. All right, what do you remember best about this, Howard?
I remember him being a tall, strong, rangy fighter. And I remember hitting him with a 1-2 here. Yeah. Went down.
You got some speed and power. Amateur fighting's not like this. We'll talk about the Olympics later, but I mean, it's just amateur fighting's not like this anymore. It's showing off the hand speed. What about no headgear? Did you like fighting with no headgear, or do you like the headgear as parameters now?
I actually liked without the headgear. I think you're more aware, you're more focused, you're more in tune with what you got to do.
Let's listen in once again to Howard Cosell.
Win the gold medal. That's written on Howard Davis's shoe. The American lightweight with a very special determination. Beginning of action in round 2. Svetkan of Bulgaria trying to become the aggressor. Floyd in the first round by a dazzling Howard Davis combination, leaving himself open for the quick right by Davis, and staggered. Left and right.
You look like you got it going at this point, Howard, huh?
Yeah, I started really getting into my rhythm around the third fight in the Olympic competition. And I felt pretty good and confident here. And you can see I'm throwing a 1-2, moving around. I felt very good. I had a very special mission.
But you could change your style, seemingly. I mean, you could stay in plant, you could float.
Yeah, actually, I'm a pretty good infighter, even though I never did much of it. I didn't want to get hit. That was one of my main objectives, not to get hit. I see so many of my contemporaries today just in bad condition, bad shape from boxing.
No question. He shot a right hand in there. That did some damage. Referee at that point would come in and count, and but they'd end it. Referee would stop it right there. TKO 3, and Howard Davis moves on to the semifinals, and this is Ace Rusevski of Yugoslavia. What do you recall about this, Howard?
I remember most of my losses as amateurs were to left-handed fighters, and so I was very nervous about him. And I remember I happened to see Archie Moore sitting down in the Olympic Village reading the newspaper, and I walked over to him and I asked him a question about fighting southpaws.
That's the right guy to ask a question.
Yeah, definitely was. And he told me that to keep my left foot outside his right foot. And when I did remember, I did it. And it helped.
Showing the power, flashing the right hand. Again, and now this is, again, you're facing, fighters from the Soviet bloc. These guys are not 18, 19 years old, right? You fight some grown men here.
Yeah, most of the guys are average age at that time, in between 25 and 30 years old. And their strength was a little different. These guys are well-conditioned athletes. This guy never stopped throwing punches at me. But like I said before, I was on a very special mission.
And out with the call there is to see Howard Davis winning the semifinal. You have Howard Cosell and Big George Foreman ringside.
I think he could go on to be champion of the world, lightweight division.
That's good.
He's got all the skills. He's quick, agile. Anything a trainer could ask for, he's everything.
Aren't you surprised by the poise of these American fighters?
More than surprised. I've never seen so much in an amateur tournament. Proud to be here to see some of this.
George was absolutely right with the amount of talent. We're going to talk about that talent. It was more than just Howard Davis and Ray Leonard. Anyway, we go to the gold medal match now. Simeon Kutov of Romania at this point. Added pressure going into the championship, or was this just next fight for you at this point?
I did something a little different for this fight. Normally I usually run the day before of a fight. For some reason, I said to myself, well, I'm going to be a lot stronger if I didn't run. And it's something I did, and I regret it because I got tired, believe it or not. And when you go out of routine sometimes it's a bad thing to do.
You think you would have been better off?
Yeah, I weighed 127 and a half throughout the whole tournament, even though I was fighting at 132. And I came in for this fight 129, and I felt a little tired, believe it or not. But I had to do what I had to do. I had to win this for my mother.
Were you aware, I mean, you're only in Montreal at this point, you aware of the country watching you, following you, and how big the 76 team was?
I didn't think about that. Matter of fact, we had a monitor in our room to watch some of the fights of some of our teammates. I never watched it. I just stayed in my room and just focused on my mother's words.
And you did it. And you did it. And you did it.
Thank you.
His mother died the night before the opening ceremonies.
You hear the legendary broadcaster Jim McKay there in the background, as well as Howard Davis wins the Olympic gold medal there. What stands out in your mind from those days, from that run?
Well, I remember having shin splints throughout the whole Olympics. My shins swelled up every morning when I had to run. That was very, very painful. But the hardest part was the passing of my mother. I was very close to her. And I was at the age when I was, less than 20 years old. My mother looked at me or raised me as a kid. But as you start to become a man, the relationship started changing. I started to understand her as a woman, as a mother, and she started to understand me as a man. And that continuity broke when she passed away.
Right. Well, you did her proud. I mean, yeah, you did exactly. You should be very proud of what you did. Great looking back at the footage and take a look again. Yeah, I know you're still tight with some of the guys on the team too, Howard. I want to take a look at the run that was made by the 1976 United States team with Leo Randolph winning the gold. Charles Mooney is still one of your good friends, right? Silver medalist.
Yeah.
Right. I know we'll talk about him later on. Ray Leonard, of course, an all-time great amateur and professional, pound for pound. Michael Spinks, middleweight gold medalist. Leon Spinks, gold medalist. Big John Tate, the heavyweight bronze medalist, and Howard Davis, the outstanding boxer of the 1976 Olympic Games. Tremendous. So now Charles Mooney, you're still tight with? He saved your life, right? Can we get this quickly before we get to the next fight? He saved your life at one point. How did this happen?
Well, in the Olympic trials, we call the thing they call the box offs, where you have to fight your opponent again to get a berth spot on the team. So I'm watching the other fighters. I just had fought, and I'm watching the other fighters fight. And somebody came over and said, "Hey, you want to go swimming?" I said, "Sure." So I told Mooney about it. We went up to this beautiful place in Vermont, with a lake. I didn't tell anybody I could swim, and I was on a rock that had nothing behind it.
You couldn't swim?
No, I swim like a rock.
All right.
If a rock can swim, that's me. So anyhow, I fell back deep into the water, and nobody saw me. And I tried to, get to the top of the water, and I couldn't make it. And I was down there, it felt like an eternity, but I was probably down there maybe 5 seconds. And then I said to myself, you can't die. You can't die. And I pushed up, and I got to here. Mooney saw me, but he didn't know I was drowning. And he started splashing water on me, laughing. And I guess he must have sort of looked in my eyes, because I had fear, panic, and he pulled me in. And I just told him, "Hey, man, I can't swim." And he pulled me in. So I have to thank him for being here. You
and saving your life. You owe him everything.
Yeah.
You owe him your life and everything.
Oh, don't tell him that.
Well, you just did. Howard Davis is here with us through the night. We're pleased to have with us. Hey, next week coming up, we have U.S. Olympians coming in on August 29th. And yet, look at Michael Spinks, great light heavyweight champion and heavyweight champion of the world, August 22nd on Friday Night Fights.
The KFC Friday Night Fight Studio is brought to you by KFC's Drumsticks and Thighs Bucket. Life tastes better with KFC.
Friday Night Fight.